Now welcome to another lightning response video where this time I'm going to try to do a few questions. I'm going to try to keep these to actual lightning responses, and we're going to start with a sort of two-parter, which begins with this question from Michael Strachan, who asked, "Hey Thor, one of the things I liked but felt was another missed opportunity about the Rise of Skywalker was the Rey versus Darth Rey fight on the Death Star. So since they can't bring back the Empire again as the big bad, going forward, should this light-dark fight in Rey be the central component to the new trilogy? I can't think of what else they could do, possibly something like the Night Sisters rising up playing into it using Paradia, which ties into Ahsoka, but I'd be seriously disappointed if they just do a, oh hey, there was another Palpatine-level Sith hiding all this time in a distant part of the galaxy." That then goes along with this question from Stallaned, who asked, "Hey Thor, as you noted, one of the reasons that many people feel like the Clone Wars saved the prequel trilogy is around how it added into the time gap between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. But it couldn't have done that without something to work with there. What is there for Disney to work with to grow Rey?" And I would say that is probably the second biggest issue you face making a Rey movie or Rey trilogy, whatever this turns out to be, assuming it turns into anything. As we've discussed before, it may never happen, but it seems like they are hell-bent on making it happen. At least Kennedy seems hell-bent on making it happen. But figuring out what to do with Rey seems like the second biggest problem, with the first being the fact that a lot of your fans just don't like Rey to begin with and aren't going to see the movie no matter what you do. But the question still is, what do you do with Rey? You can't just say, oh, there are some remnants of the First Order yet that we need to go and take care of, and another Sith or dark side user has rounded them up, and it's just the same thing over. It's just another empire. And though I don't hate the idea of her having to grapple with the dark side some more, the dark side is always going to be there. If you're a Jedi, you always have to fight it to some degree. Along with that, I don't hate the idea of having to grapple more with the Palpatine heritage a bit, but I really think that should have been just all wrapped up in the Rise of Skywalker, and I mean, it is implied it is. At the end of the movie, she rejects it and kills Palpatine again and all that. So figuring out what to do with Rey, what the next big threat is going to be, is the entire key to everything, I think. And this wouldn't be a problem exclusive to Rey. It's a problem that they just face with Star Wars in general. They have to figure out what is the next big threat that they're going to go with. It seems like in the Mando time period, we are bringing in Night Sisters, and that's all well and good. We got Thrawn as well. We got some cool threats that hopefully they can work into an interesting and good story. But what are you going to do now? I feel like if the dark side rises again, we just have another powerful dark side user, another Sith, or whatever they might want to call themselves. It would kind of defeat the purpose of everything you just accomplished again by defeating Palpatine. And I'm not saying that there will never or should never be another Sith or dark side Force user. Of course there should be. But we need a little bit of a break to say, hey, we beat Palpatine, we beat the dark side for now. We get a little break from that. But at the same time, if you don't bring in another Sith or dark side user, there's going to be people like, well, this isn't even Star Wars. It's supposed to be Jedi versus Sith. So we have this sort of double-edged sword right now. You either go with the Sith again, and some people are going to roll their eyes and be like, oh, so it doesn't matter that you beat the Sith. They just come right on back. And if you don't go with them and you don't come up with something really good, because it has to be good, it has to be worthy of a movie or trilogy, right? A new threat that is big enough to warrant this. But if you don't come up with something good, and it's going to be hard, because you can't just do another faction like the Empire, like I was saying, you're going to fail. The whole thing is going to rely on not so much Rey, but what you come up with to challenge her. And you do want to challenge her. That is the big problem with her in the sequels, right? It doesn't feel like anything quite challenges her, or not enough. So you have to come up with something big. It has to be new and unique. It can't just be another Sith that was hiding in the shadows. It can't be just another Sith who rises in power immediately after the death of Palpatine, in the grand scheme of things, because we are 15 years later. And it can't be another Empire-like faction that comes around and needs to be fought. It needs to be something truly unique, and we'll see if they can figure that out. Alright, and kind of sticking with that theme or question, we have a comment here from Thanks Hermione, who asked, "Hey Thor, I've noticed that fans of Rey are or were intrigued by her connections to other people, but not so much drawn to her as a character in her own right. Who is she related to? How is she going to train and interact with Luke? What about her dynamic with Kylo/Ben? Could she pair off with him or someone like Finn or Poe?" And I do think that maybe here in hindsight, the dumbest or worst thing that The Force Awakens did was ending the movie the way it did, with Rey handing the lightsaber to Luke and leaving us with 100 questions about Rey. In the time that followed in the 2 years between The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, we were all theorizing about who she is, not what she's going to do next per se. We were more interested in where she had been than where she was going, and that was a huge problem, because it turned out that where she had been didn't matter. That was irrelevant to her story. But we were so focused on, is she a Skywalker? Is she a Kenobi? Is she a Palpatine? Which she turned out to be. But we were so focused on what was behind her, we weren't looking at what was ahead, which the movie even told us at one point to do with the Maz Kanata scene. And yet at the same time, it ends in a way where we got to figure out who she is before we care about where she's going. The movie failed to really make you care about Rey. I agree with what you're saying here. One of the big problems with Rey is we're not really interested in her as much as we are pretty much everything going on around her. Even people who love Rey seem to love Reylo. They like the idea of her and Kylo together. I don't know how many people just genuinely are attracted to the character of Rey in and of herself and really want to know what she's up to next. Like I was saying before, if you want to salvage Rey, you not only do have to make a new interesting threat, but you do have to bring something to the table for the character to make us really start to care about her. And as I also said in the previous comment, you have a good portion of the fan base who doesn't want to give her that chance, who are never going to give Rey a chance. So you have a lot of hurdles to face if you really are banking on Rey as the future of Star Wars and really going to make a movie or trilogy or again, whatever they plan on doing with her. Okay, and let's stick with this topic and go to this question from Overgrown Dweeb, who asked, Hey Thor, let's say you were in charge of the next trilogy and your risk-averse C-suite overlords told you that 1. We are going to leverage our investment in the sequels, and 2. We are not developing a new lead character that does not already have name recognition in the fan base. Are there any existing characters besides Rey that you think could be developed into a strong lead going forward? And I really think Finn could have and maybe still could be something like that, a character you can sort of bank on, because he is widely regarded as the most wasted potential in the sequel trilogy. I've done polls before asking what character do you think was just done the dirtiest, and Finn is the winner. And unlike Rey, there seems to be still some charity there, if you take my meaning, that people still think you could do something with him or wouldn't be as opposed to doing something with him. Whereas Rey, I feel like most people are just, we're good, we're done, we don't want anything. I think there are some people that would say, oh, you're going with Finn? All right, I'll give this a chance. I'll see what you can do with that. Whereas Rey, they just don't have any interest. And I really think their best bet, if they are going to do this Rey movie, is to get John Boyega back, is to get Finn back, and to have him be a part of it. I think you could have something there. I think the initial idea of a stormtrooper who goes Jedi, which, yeah, was done in the Legends timeline, but I think that's a good idea. It worked in the Legends timeline, and I think it could still work here despite fumbling him a bit in the sequel trilogy. Alright, and moving on to a new topic, we have this question from LOL I Am Not, who asked, Hey Thor, what Jedi quote/philosophy helps you the most in your day-to-day life? And I would actually say it's what Qui-Gon tells Obi-Wan at the start of The Phantom Menace, or what Yoda touches on in Empire Strikes Back with Luke when he talks about how all his life he has looked away to the future. But in The Phantom Menace, you have Qui-Gon telling Obi-Wan to keep your focus, your attention in the here and now. And Obi-Wan tries to argue, but you should be mindful of the future, right? And Qui-Gon says yes, but not at the expense of the moment. And so I like that because it always reminds me to keep my focus in the now, that I cannot just worry about or think about the future. And if I want to alter the future, I have to worry about where I am right now. I have to keep my attention here. I can't just dream of what could be. I have to make it a reality. So yeah, that is my favorite kind of philosophy of the Jedi. I have a lot of philosophies I like about the Jedi, don't get me wrong. But the one I would use in my day-to-day life is sort of just keeping your attention where you are, what you are doing, how you are treating other people in the moment. Don't take things for granted. Enjoy your life in the here and now. Alright, the next one comes to us from Derek Lopez, who asked, Hey Thor, I've been wanting to ask, is Battle of the Heroes and Villains officially over? Because the last character we've ranked was Cyril Karn, which was a year ago. And since then, we haven't been ranking any other characters. It was such a fun topic, and I feel like there's still more characters to rank. If it is over, then I guess it was fun while it lasted. And I actually was about to restart it. I said in a couple videos back, I think that I was going to restart it, that I was going to do the HK47 video finally, and that kind of has become a joke, and it's one of the reasons I have postponed it is because I have people quote-unquote threatening me to do it, and so I've not been doing it for that reason. But anyway, I was going to restart it, but then I found out that YouTube only allows 4 options now, which makes it a little harder to do the rankings. We already kind of lacked the S ranking that a lot of people wanted to have because we only had 5 options. Now with 4, I'm not sure how I would kind of align it with what we've done before because the scores would have to be different. I don't know if people have any suggestions, other places I can do the polls that people would actually go and check out and comment on, because a lot of times when you try to direct people to, say, a poll or whatever else, they're just never going to do that. It's easy to be scrolling through your feed, see the poll, vote, maybe leave a comment and move on with your life. I don't know, if people have suggestions, I would love to bring it back, but right now it is kind of in limbo until I figure out how to bring it back. Alright, well that is going to be all I got for you this time. Now it is your turn. Take to the comments below. Tell me what you think about my responses here. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Or answer the questions yourself. You can also ask a question for a future lightning response video. All you got to do is you start your comment off with "Hey Thor" and then ask away. And thank you to everybody who has been leaving questions. There are a ton of them. And if you have asked a really good question and you're like, "Hey Thor, you really should answer this one," do feel free to post it again. I don't mind if you kind of hound me a little bit. Doesn't mean I will answer it, but I will try to. Anyway, leave those questions and comments below. Let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.